Respected Principal Ma'am, respected teachers, and dear students. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all of you. It is my great pleasure to introduce the Prabhakhadan Foundation and our wonderful initiative, Muskaan. The foundation has been a beacon of cultural, literary, and social activities, tirelessly working towards promoting art, culture, and heritage. Muskaan focuses on bringing joy and learning to children through various creative and educational activities. We organize a variety of activities such as storytelling sessions, workshops, and cultural events aimed at fostering a love for learning and enhancing the overall development of young minds. Environment where children can explore their creativity, build confidence, and develop essential skills for their future. Today, it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce you to a distinguished guest who has made significant contributions to the world of children's literature, Ms. Savie Karnel. Ma'am. Of the critically acclaimed book, The Nameless Scorn, which has captured the hearts of readers across India. In 2021, it was voted the most popular children's book on Amazon India and was shortlisted for the prestigious Bangalore Literature Festival Book Prize in the same year. Her remarkable work continued to garner recognition as it became the only children's book shortlisted for the MAMI Mumbai Film Festival's Words to Screen Options market in 2023. Into the realm of storytelling began after a successful career in journalism. She has worked with esteemed publications such as the New Indian Express, Midday, and Talk magazine in Bangalore. Her transition from journalism to children's writing has been marked by a unique ability to weave enchanting tales that resonate with young readers. She also has a new book titled Lakshmi Panda, the story of Netaji's youngest spy. When Ms. Karnel is not crafting new stories or brainstorming captivating plots, she indulges in her passion for travel and enjoys listening to the myriad stories of the people she encounters. Currently, she resides in Kolkata with her husband, son, and their two beloved indie dogs. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thanks to the BSS School for hosting this interactive session with Ms. Karnel. We hope you learned something valuable and thoroughly enjoy your time. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Karnel. To Sabina, I would like Ma'am Sen to please come forward. We would like to present on behalf of Muskaan 2 copies of her latest book, which is Lakshmi Panda, that can be kept in the library and all of you can read it. So over to you, Savie. It's all yours.
And I'm thankful to the principal and to the school management and the Prabhakhadan Foundation for inviting me here. It's a privilege to be with such young, bright minds gathered here today. I was very pleased to see that many of you are writers. There were quite a lot of hands that were raised up. And any of you, many of you are readers. Are you writers? That's quite a lot of people. Oh, wow, I'm filled. I'm in a hall full of writers, I believe. So I'm just wondering, can I give you anything new? I think these are my secrets for writing, which I've come here to share with you. Okay? So what do you write? Short stories? Anyone who's written short stories? Put up your hands. Oh, lot of people. So a lot of you upstairs as well. A lot of you write fiction, is it? Okay, then I'm in the right place because I too write fiction. Okay, so I guess most of you do know what I'm going to tell you about since you're already writers. So let's move. So what do you think makes a good story? Any one of you, please? Yeah. You can please. The backstory. The plot. The characters. Okay. Right, yeah. But all of these together, they cannot, exist alone. So all of these together can make a good story. So we have settings, the characters, a point of view, conflict, plot, and a theme. These are just basics. Okay, setting. What do you understand by setting?
Just like that, we can do it by taking the plot and the whole setting in an order, and I think that is known as setting.
Well, partly right. You, yeah.
Like the timeline, like where the story has been taking place, and the cases, or like the theme, like what type of theme, and like how say it. Okay, you need to run a bit. No. Okay, you need to run.
Okay. Introduction of, okay, let me come. By setting, what we mean is where the story is located. Your story has to take place in a certain place and in a certain time. So that is what we mean by setting. So where and when is the story happening? Okay. So can you both see those tiny pictures at the bottom? The left here, the left side, what is it? A castle. Can anyone tell me what kind of story comes to your mind when you see a castle? Anyone else? Right? You can think of fantasy.
From something horror.
Heroic. Horror. Yes. A castle could be filled with horrors. Yeah. Yes.
Something. Hello. Some royal story kind of thing, like.
Okay, royal stories, periodic drama.
Mysterious.
Mysterious. It was mysterious.
Fantasy.
Fantasy. Okay. Now let's come to the picture on the right. There, on the right, what do we have? Some skyscrapers. What do you think? Think of a story when you see a skyscraper. The second one.
A story where we are in the future and possibly there are wars between humans and robots.
Yes, something in the future. Like the idea.
Some kind of actions movie, like in the movies, the heroes jump from the building.
Like Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Okay. So now do you see the difference? Yeah, I'll come back to you. There are many more slides. The difference when you see a castle, what do you think of fantasy? You think of the medieval period. You think of historic period dramas, right? And when you see the skyscraper, you see futuristic stories. So the setting makes all the difference. So where you set your story, kind of sets the tone of the story ahead. So even the characters, your characters behave in a certain way in a certain setting, and again, setting means the physical location and the people. Your character in a setting of a castle or in a setting of medieval Europe will behave in a different way, will dress in a different way. And the same applies to your futuristic story when the setting is full of futuristic buildings and skyscrapers. So you get me what a setting is? Yeah. Okay? So characters could be anything. It could be a person, could be animals, and also could be anything that is personified. Someone just said that the castle could be a good horror story. So a castle in such a story could itself be a character. The castle could, deal with the other characters. So in characters, you have a protagonist, or you could have many protagonists, more than one as well. So what do you mean by protagonist? The hero of the story. And when you develop a protagonist, what all do you think you should, what all you should describe about your character, your primary character? It's you. Yeah, inner conflict. Good. Besides that,
Villains.
sorry.
Side characters and villains.
Yeah, side characters and villains, those are secondary characters. So, okay, for all characters, you need to describe their, I'll come back to you, physical appearance and their mannerisms. You need to develop the character. You should think of the character of someone, of a person like and try to think like the character, and you describe how the character looks, how they talks, and also give a story, a backstory of why this character acts in a certain way. Like Harry Potter, you must have all known. So again, Harry Potter has a backstory, right? Of his parents being attacked and all that. So you need a backstory to develop a primary character. But this one character cannot, stay alone. There are many books where you have just one character, but many books have many other characters as well. There are secondary characters who support the main primary character. Like these two illustrations on the slide are from my book. On the left, we have two little boys, Noor and Bachu. In my book, The Nameless God, we have two primary characters. These two friends, Noor and Bachu, and we have another character. We have many other characters, but another character is this dog, a non-human character. There is this three-legged dog called Kangaroo. And on the right, you see the character from my latest book. And she is Lakshmi Panda. This is a real picture of Lakshmi Panda. The soldier in the middle with the gun is Lakshmi Panda, who was a part of a soldier in Rani of Jhansi Regiment of Subhash Chandra Bose's Indian National Army. So she was Netaji's youngest spy, who later went on to become a spy. So, and then at point of view, I would like to discuss point of view. What do you mean by point of view? Yes, perspective. Yes, wonderful. How we are seeing the character and how is it described? See, point of view is, I would discuss it in two parts. One is how you write your story. It can be the first person. Like in my books, both of my books are in first person. So in the book Lakshmi Karnel, Lakshmi is telling her story. It's a 14-year-old girl who's telling the story and telling everything what she sees around her during the Second World War. So your perspective also and point of view, when you're saying the first person, your view is only of that person. So if ever I had to write the Lakshmi Panda through a third person's point of view, a narrator's point of view, then it would be somebody who knows everything. Like who would discuss the war, who perhaps would discuss politics, who would discuss something else that was happening in India with the Gandhian movement. The third person would have discussed everything. But since I'm in my book, it's Lakshmi speaking, it's a 14-year-old girl who's speaking, the perspective is totally different. It is about how a little person, a little girl, a 14-year-old girl, would see the world. It is through her eyes. She perceived, marching to India with the regiment. So there are different perspectives. So your point of view also changes the tone of your story. Conflict? You all know what somebody said, inner conflict. Yes.
It is a challenge or a problem.
Exactly. It's a challenge or a problem. So for your story, there are many different ways to write a story. But a conflict always helps you to move the story ahead. So if I just say, okay, there were two boys and a dog and they went to school every day. So there what would happen is, the story wouldn't move forward. You would just be seeing them going to school and coming back and doing their homework. But then if I give them a conflict, if you say that there was somebody who was bullying them and they were scared to go to school, you see there the story, there's some tension in the story. And the story moves forward. They have some challenge towards which they have to work. And you're saying something, you raise your hand. Thirsty crow, even there's a conflict where the crow finds the jar of water, but it is too low. And that's a conflict of how to get the water rise up. Everyone said a plot. What do you all mean by a plot? Conflict and plot are two different things.
The happenings of the story.
The both of it, the way in which the story goes forward or the happenings of the story. Or in simple words, we can say the storyline. You want to say something? Yeah.
The plot can be also taken as a mystery which keeps us hooked to the story, or which keeps us on attached to the story, which also
Well, mystery again would be, we'll say conflict. They are quite confusing. Plot and conflict are confusing. Plot is the entire storyline from the beginning to the end. So how will your story move forward? So there are different story arcs, but the most commonly used story arc is this. This is the most commonly used story arc and more successful also. Even most of our legends and myths have followed the same arc. So initially you have the exposition wherein you explain the characters, the settings of what is happening, and then you have the rising action. Things start happening, and then the conflict. Your conflict is your climax is for what the entire story keeps moving forward to. And then the story, then the problem is solved and the story comes to an end. So the perfect example that what I would like to give is from Tom and Jerry. You all watch Tom and Jerry?
Yes, ma'am.
Can anyone tell me a storyline of Tom and Jerry in one line and in simple terms? Upright, anyone want to talk? Yes. You can still be allowed. Now, the next character goes in the story. So what happens generally in Tom and Jerry? Here, right. Second row.
first Tom starts chasing Jerry, and then their problem is solved at the end with the big dog.
Very good. See, the first what happens is, can you please repeat it?
Yes, first Tom starts chasing Jerry, and then their problem is solved with the big dog, and in the middle they have some fights and problems.
So you get it? First exposition, you have Tom and Jerry in their own corners doing their things, and then Tom starts following together. Now, you want to say something? I'll come back to the
Tom chases Jerry, but they have fights, but they are actually really good friends.
Okay. So you see that the Tom and Jerry generally follows the car. You have Tom and Jerry, and then they start fighting, and then the fight goes to the way of chasing. Chasing is the rising action, and then they both fight. That's the climax. And then the story comes down, and the big dog comes, solves the problem, and then they are again on their own, right? So that's the story arc. And what's the theme? My theme means everything there is an underlying message. Yeah, you please.
Theme means, ma'am, maybe a theme means what the story is about. Means it can be the story can be full of happiness or some may kind of problems in the life of the character. So it indicates what is the story about.
Right, very right. Anyone else on top? Yes. One who's raising hand, you can be loud. Yeah, proper version of the genre. So you know what this is a story about good versus evil. This is a story about survival, love, sacrifice. Like in my book, The Rainbow Sword, the theme is friendship beyond barriers. The theme is friendship. And in Lakshmi Panda, the theme is also survival and patriotism. Okay? And my last rule for writing is that there are no rules. Whatever I told you are just pointers to help you. And I firmly believe that you need to explore, experiment, innovate, create it. If at all there were steps to writing, then the future would just be like mathematics. If you follow steps and everything, all stories would be the same. But I would say be bold to write your own story, to take risks, to write something new, to knock all these rules I told you, and create something exciting. So keep your minds open. Alright? And I will use some of them. I have made my own rules as well. Like in my book, The Nameless Sword, the first book, the point of view is of two people. The voice changes in alternate chapters. We have one chapter in Noor's voice and the other in Batru's voice. And I had a reason to do that. The book is about friendship amidst communal violence. And both these boys belong to different communities. So I wanted to give perspective of both these children who are of the same age but see things differently. And I found the good way to do is to bring in perspectives of both in alternate chapters. And in Lakshmi Panda, I have one voice that is of Lakshmi, who again, as I told you before, it's a 14-year-old perspective of the Second World War and the freedom struggle of the Indian National Army. So I would like to do a short retake of my book, Lakshmi Panda. Is it all right with you? See, this is a chapter, I'm reading from chapter 16. It's called Birds at Night. So in this part, Lakshmi has already joined the INA. And they are in the camp. And the camp, I feel with so many young girls around, is more or less like your school. Wherein you have fun, you have rules, you have mischief as well. So this is a part where they have a mischievous Rani. The soldiers in Rani of Jhansi regiment were called Ranis. During the time of war, food is scarce, you could ration. And sugar was a precious thing. But this girl will always steal it and get away. So here, let's see what happens to her, okay? The day Emily predicted came, her plate was fought red-handed. She literally had her hand inside the sugar jar when Rani Jayashree grabbed her. You think if I'm unwell and sleepy I can't see? My eyes are always watching, she said. Rani Jayashree is one of the older Ranis, who was overseeing all these girls, more like a hostel board. Well, that's what we think she said. Because nobody knows what really transpired between Rani Jayashree and Harpreet, but this is what, they say, gossip spreads around, people say, so. And that is what happened. Man called her, and man said this, and she said that. This is what's happening between Rani Jayashree and Harpreet. So we have Lakshmi telling us, well, that's what we think she said. Emily told me, and somehow someone else told her. All the Ranis were India's classes. And I was cleaning the rooms at the time. The story goes that Harpreet tried her best to twist and turn and break free. But Rani Jayashree, despite John Payne, did that for me. She twisted Harpreet's arm behind her back, and Harpreet had to lean in pain. Rani Jayashree forced open Harpreet's mouth. And just as Yashoda saw the universe in Lord Krishna's mouth, Rani Jayashree saw the iron flag high on Indian soil inside Harpreet's mouth. Last bit is true, but that's what one of the rabbis said. When stories travel, we had a lot of exciting stuff going. This was perhaps one of the exciting stuff added by the Ranis. We heard that Harpreet tried to reason with Rani Jayashree. Why should I be punished? Why can't I have a little extra sugar? When Jayashree said that the sugar had to be shared with everybody and she couldn't have extra since we were all equal. Harpreet said, if that's the case, why do some girls get food from their homes? Their servants carry food for them. Their uniforms are stitched by their family tailors. Isn't that unfair? Well, the Ranis in the ironing came from different backgrounds, The story is set in Burma. Some of the Ranis were from business families, Indian business families in Burma who thought they had to fight for India's freedom and join the ironing. And many of the Ranis, in fact, came from Malaya, Singapore, and even from Burma, who were children of plantation workers or estate workers, like our heroine here, Lakshmi Karnel. She was a daughter of her parents were railroad workers, and they were killed in a bomb blast, and she was orphaned. So many of the Ranis came from these families, and their families were close around the camps. Though I still don't know for sure if that's exactly what Harpreet said, this was an issue, the estate issue, and issue the estate girl and I talked about. But these girls were generally, referred to as among themselves as estate girls. Maybe Netaji had spies among us, or maybe it was simply that the officers reported everything to him. Anyway, that evening it was announced that Ranis could no longer get food from their homes. We all had to eat at the same canned food. But Netaji was very particular that everyone had to be treated equal. And they all had to learn to fight. And so the for that they would all eat the same food and nobody would get food from their homes. Captain Taylor reminded us of the three principles of the ironing. Anyone knows the three principles of the ironing, the motto? Here we have someone at the back. We know the three principles of the ironing, the motto of the ironing. And sacrifice. Unity, faith, and sacrifice. Along with, and then, Captain Taylor gave them a long lecture of how they should be united and, be ready to sacrifice. That evening, the Ranis in my barracks stayed up whispering and talking in bed. Rani Jayashree shouted, "Stop this Rapshakipsha. You girls yap, talk, and giggle all day and all night. Off to sleep now." Emily always knew how to draw Rani Jayashree into the conversation. "Did you hear Purnama is going to be an officer?" So, there were ranks. The INA followed the British Army because many of the male soldiers were soldiers of the British Indian Army. And when the Japanese occupied Singapore, they were all taken as prisoners of war. Prisoners of war later joined the INA, and they formed the INA first under Captain Mohan Singh, They formed the INA and they then followed Netaji to march towards India. So they followed the same discipline, the same rules in the INA as well. And they had a band structure. So there were officers and there were soldiers, Ranis. Like the most famous Rani, is Captain Lakshmi Sehgal. All of you must have heard of her. So Captain Lakshmi Sehgal was the commander of the Rani regiment, the Rani of Jhansi regiment. She was a medical doctor who, joined Netaji to form the Rani of Jhansi regiment in Singapore. And then they came to Burma as well. But our Rani, Lakshmi Panda, is a different Rani. Okay, she is not Captain Lakshmi Sehgal. Her name was actually Lakshmi Rat. Panda is her married name, but she's popularly known as Panda. And same with Captain Lakshmi Sehgal. When she was in the INA, Captain Lakshmi Sehgal was Lakshmi Swaminathan. That was her maiden name. But in the book also, we have used the maiden name since the story, again I told you, is set in the 1940s when they were in INA and they were not married. I mean, at least Lakshmi Panda was not married. Lakshmi Swaminathan was married, but she used a maiden name then. But she married Captain Sehgal much later. Okay. So we are using her name. And we also have this part when Lakshmi comes to INA and Netaji says, oh, you are also Lakshmi. The regiment is also Lakshmi and your commander is also Lakshmi. So there will be a lot of confusion. So what do we do? Any idea what was the solution for this confusion? You can do your own solution, yes?
Calling them by their surnames.
Calling them by their surnames, okay. Yeah, that's how it could be done, but many of, we Indians share our surnames. So even that can lead to confusion. So Netaji actually changed Lakshmi's name. Lakshmi Panda was Lakshmi Rat. He called her Indira. So she was known as Rani Indira in the INA camp to avoid confusion with Captain Lakshmi, the commander. So she was Lakshmi Indira, and even now when let me first tell you a story of how I wrote this book. It's in the evening. I was sitting in my office. It was about, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock in the night. Most of the people had left. And there was this young man who came to the office door with a pile of files. A young, maybe in his early 20s. He was walking, and I asked him, what does he want? And he said he was walking to every office in Bangalore. He was working in Bangalore, I guess, as a security guard then. So he was going to every office in Bangalore and telling his grandmother's story. He said, I'm here to tell my Nani Ma's story. And his grandmother was Lakshmi Panda. So then we sat and I spoke to him. And he told how his grandmother was part of the INA. And that time it was 2008. Around this time only, July. And Lakshmi was in Pelli. She was working as a domestic help in many houses in Jaipur and Orissa to make ends meet. And this grandson of ours was trying to get the freedom fighters pension for her. So the freedom fighters pension is given to many freedom fighters, and some of the INA soldiers as well. But Lakshmi Panda, being a spy, and the thing with Lakshmi is that she never got caught. Even in the book she says that, it is not brave to go to jail. Being a soldier and a spy, my job is to not get caught. And that was kind of a hindrance for her to get a pension. Because most of the freedom fighters who got pension were the ones who went to jail in the freedom struggle. So Lakshmi didn't go to jail, but she fought a long battle. And the grandson was going and writing about her. Then another gentleman helped her in Bhubaneswar. And so she was then invited by the then President Pratibha Patil to Rashtrapati Bhavan. And there they cross-checked with the other INA officers who were there, and they found that her claim was true. She was Lakshmi Indira. And then she was honored with the Rashtriya Swatantrata Sainik Samman, which is the honor given to the freedom fighters. But this came a little too late. Just a week or two after this, after meeting the president, she passed away in New Delhi. So she couldn't really see, getting all the recognition that she is getting now. She didn't see any of this during her lifetime. She struggled through her life. And I had written about this in the newspaper, and around that time I had made up my mind that someday we need to tell Lakshmi's story. But it didn't become that popular, and we did have books. There, I mean, which there's a chapter, there's The Last Heroes by Magsaysay Award winning journalist P. Sainath. There's one chapter on Lakshmi Panda. But there was nothing, but what I felt was everyone spoke about how Lakshmi's state was deplorable, how pitiful condition she lived in towards the end of her life, how she struggled through her life. But then I felt that these 2 years that she spent in the INA as a soldier, when she was a young 14-year-old, that must have been very exciting and adventurous. And she, actually, when I spoke to her on the phone, and the first thing what Lakshmi Panda said was, Jai Hind. But not the way I said it, with all gusto and all devotion. She meant every syllable of the word that she said, because she believed in every utterance of it. And she had a poster of Netaji in her small hut, kind of a shanty, in fact, a small shanty, where she, revered him every day. And I asked her, what did you do in the INA? She said, my parents, there was a bombing by the British and my parents died. And it was she and her younger brother, Nakul, who was around 10, and she must have been 13, 14. And they were left alone to fend themselves with a ravaging war. Netaji had come there and the Rani camp was being set, and she decided to join them. I said, what did you do as a soldier? She said, at first I did the cleaning, sweeping and all those menial jobs because I was too young. They said, you are too young. And plus, coming from poverty, she was malnourished and too frail. But in a way that later on it worked to her advantage. She became, they said that she became a spy because nobody would doubt her. So she could easily mingle with the people, enter British camps and collect information. So I said, well, what did you do? She said, she was very casual. She said, I used to go and catch frogs for the British and sell it to them and go there and collect information. And then she didn't think it was something extraordinary because for her it was her duty. So that's when I thought that I had to write for her, and and I wrote it after 14 years, I guess. And I sat down and I wrote a story. But and I had to do a lot of research around that time because nobody documented her journey in the INA. She was just another number as a person, like the many others. Lakshmi is just one of the many soldiers, one of the many unknown soldiers. There must have been several thousands of them whom we do not know, whose stories are lost. Okay. So my story begins with this.
Ma'am, so you told us the story about how you wrote the Lakshmi Panda book, but what had inspired you to write the English one? And is the character Kangaroo inspired from one of your leaders?
Oh, that's a lovely question. Well, yeah, the name is God, we all, we live in a beautiful country. We all live together despite our differences, despite our diversity. I guess our diversity of our country is what makes our country so unique. And so I wanted to bring out this story of these two children from different faiths who have come across all barriers of religion, of communal violence, and still stick to each other. And they find a unique way of creating their own products, their own way. So I thought this beauty had to be celebrated, and this story had to be, this is not, I would say that we see the story around us every day, but it had to be told again and again. And so that's why I wrote a book, The Nameless, all about these two friends to celebrate the friendship. And coming back to Kangaroo, Well, I love the character Kangaroo. Kangaroo is not one of my indie dogs, but he is an indie dog, a street dog who used to live down at the lake when I lived in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. So, it's a, we live on a hill. So, and this dog was three-legged, but yet I never felt that he was, unable to do anything. He was very able. With his three legs, he would hop out, get into the garbage, hop out, run around. He was very comfortable with his three legs. So, and he was all brown, just like the leaves in the book, and he inspired me. So, yeah, it is, Kangaroo is based on another dog in Dharamshala, who I think is still around there somewhere, but doesn't know that he features in the book.
So, do you think giving pictures and drawings in the story is really important?
Sorry?
Do you think giving pictures and some illustrations in a book is really important with the story?
Well, that's a tricky question to me. My first book has illustrations, and I think it depends on book to book. It works in some books, and some books may not need it. Like in my first book, my editor decided that, illustration would make it more interesting. And so we had illustration in the first book. And in the second book, there were no illustrations at all. Because second book, I felt that, you could imagine, I guess, we could imagine and go on the journey with Lakshmi Panda. So we decided not to have an illustration. It works from book to book. Every book is different. Yeah, yes.
Ma'am, did you face any problem while writing and how did you overcome it? Any problem while writing any of the books?
Okay, yeah, problem while writing is main problem is to find time to write. In the sense, people do not realize that writing is a job. That you have to sit at it and write. Sometimes most people think you're doing nothing. But I guess the main thing which I would have covered in my presentation is your discipline and dedication. The discipline to sit at your table for a set number of hours and write a set number of words, that is most important. And I did face difficulty with that. So I am also a bit lazy person at times.
Ma'am, if you were a character of the book Lakshmi Panda, then how would you feel?
How would I feel? It's very difficult to say. Being in the Lakshmi stage at that time, perhaps I would have felt like a superwoman. But perhaps I would have felt dejected. So, feeling that, I'm all alone in the world. And then we found camaraderie with the other girls around me. And I had to study in a girls' school and study in a girls' college as well. So I know how good it feels, what sisterhood is. And I think this pressure that what you all have. And Lakshmi might have felt the same, being part of the INA, of the Rani Regiment. Perhaps I too would feel the same.
I would like to know that what do you do to get over a creative block if you have one? While writing, if you face a creative block, what would you do to overcome that?
Yeah. If I face a creative block, most of the time I maybe just go to sleep for some time. Forget about the book. Forget that you're writing a book. Because if you keep thinking of the same thing, it strains you. Or maybe do something else, go for a walk and just maybe do a garden a bit. Yeah, I find different ways to get over it. The main thing is to take off the book from your mind. Don't make it stressful. You have to enjoy the process. Yeah, yes.
How do you develop the motivation or desires of a main character?
Well, we said in the 90s. So all I had to do was go back to my childhood and try thinking like a 10-year-old in the 90s and what is motivation. I guess we need to research through of the character and try thinking like a character. But in the second book, I had to do a lot of research because this was someone in the fortress. And I researched and tried to understand the social and social conditions there, cultural conditions there, and then work on the character.
As a student, As a student, I know how much of it's very frustrating to like find out historical details from Google, like quite a lot of historical details. So how did you find time and what sources did you use to reconstruct each bit of the story?
My motto was, so I had to make time. So writing does not just mean sitting and, writing the words and writing sentences. The writing of a book also involves the process of research. So time had to be found. It was dedicated time. I read a lot of books. My research included books of the era, books of the period. And I spoke, being a journalist, I like speaking to people. I interviewed Lakshmi's family. I spoke to her grandchildren. And this gentleman started taking care of her. He had some videos of her. I went through recorded videos and interviews, and this all involved my research. And you can even start. I think the mic video someone from down. Yes.
I'm a student of classic and I would like to know that why do you think the nameless God is the most appropriate name for your book? And if you had an option, what else would you name it?
Well, the nameless God was my first choice. I shall say I first wrote the book and tied down the story. And I hadn't given it a title. And after writing the book, it was now so involved in the characters and in the feeling from the God what my name was. I realized I haven't given a name to the God at all. And so I decided to call the book the nameless God. Excuse me, guys. Hello. This is a request. If somebody is asking a question and ma'am is taking the trouble to address that question, giving the answer, then I think it's only respectful to be quiet and listen to it. It's both respectful for the person who's asking and for the person who's taking the trouble to ask. I'm sorry about that. So just restrict yourself. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand and you'll come to me.
Ma'am, I am very curious to know that I have never read a writing, so I'm very curious to know, ma'am, have you ever expressed any of your childhood events in your writing?
Oh yes, I have.
Can you please share one instance with us?
Yes. In my book, The Nameless God, since I told you it's about the children in the 90s and the child in the 90s. So many of the instances in the book are about from my childhood. Even when you think of creating the own world, partly based on a small game being the I play with my friends or creating our own journey.
I want to ask a question that how do you decide the title of the book? Like how the
Title of the book is very, I tell you, it's not entirely up to me. The title of the book, it says, if at all, I'm a traditionally published author. It's not entirely up to me. The entire team decides the title of the book. The nameless God, I decided, and it went ahead. But the editor of the publishing house, the marketing team, all of them decide on the title of the house. But I would reveal a small secret. The name that I had given to Lakshmi Panda was not this. I had given a different title. And we had called it A Child's Fight. But then the team at BSS Publications decided that we have to go with this name because they felt that this book can be read by others as well. They said it needs a wider audience, so they decided to go with Lakshmi Panda. And then we had to push the other line of Netaji's youngest spy and all that. Okay? So
Yes, ma'am, I want to ask, how did you think you were writing the books?
how did I think about writing the book?
No, ma'am, how did you feel?
Oh, I love writing books. I love the writing part because you create your own world, and you kind of acting like God at some point. You decide on what the characters will do, what will the events take place. You're creating something, that you have a free hand which you may not have in your real life. So I enjoy the process of writing. Are we running out of time? Let's build the question.
Ma'am, I was saying that how did you end up the book?
How did I?
End up the book?
Okay, end up of the ending.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You didn't read the book for that. But anyway, all my books end on a positive note because I feel I write for children, so they have to be children like something happy. Ending. Yeah. Because I recently had a review in Deccan Chronicle. The reviewer was like, "This is happy." He was not happy with the happy ending. Okay.
Ma'am, what was your first book that you wrote?
Well,
No, ma'am, the first book that you wrote.
yeah, the Nameless God. I have two books. The Nameless God is my first book. Wait. Mom, yeah, somebody was sick.
How do you work through character development?
How do I work? Character, I'll tell you. For me, I have to be the character. I guess when I develop the character, I try to think like the character. You know, sometimes I do a workshop called thinking hats, wherein you wear a hat and try to think like that particular character. So that is how I work on my characters. Thank you.
I had a question. The cover designs of your books, did you make them yourself or like the editor made it for you?
Well, covered, I'll tell you, writing is a team effort. Whoever tells you that's the author is lying to you. The author writes the book, then it goes through several processes. There are editors who read it, then the author is asked to rewrite parts as well. Okay, this is just plain truth that all of you should know. And then, there are, which is proofread. And the graphics and designer, there are graphic designers who make the cover. And there are illustrators who make the illustrations. So I do not make the cover.
Ma'am, is there any story of yours that isn't published but you have written it?
Oh yes, a long time back I had written a fantasy novel. It is still nice in my drawer, it is still there. And I haven't published it yet. But because that time I thought that it was the best book ever written. But now when I look back, I realize that I have to work a lot on it.
Ma'am, if you were in the place of Lakshmi, then when you came to know that you have been selected or choose to be a spy, ma'am, what would be the first thought in your mind?
I would be very excited. I love spy movies. I would think of all the adventure that I would do. Isn't it? But it would have been a little dangerous as well, I guess. And that's what makes Lakshmi different from us.
Does your interview with Lakshmi Pandey impact you in some other way?
Yes, it did. I felt, I was very sad. I couldn't really express. My heart was heavy for a long time. And I somehow thought that, there are many unknown people who haven't got their due.
Ma'am, what was the feeling for you were writing the book?
What was the feeling? Writing, I love writing books. I love being in a character. But I tell you, Lakshmi Panda, I was not always happy because there are many parts in Lakshmi Panda which are tragic. And they're the most difficult to write.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think we've
Ma'am, I'm Amana.
Hi, Amana.
Ma'am, I also try writing. I won't say I'm a writer. So, ma'am, when you write, how do you get that motivation and passion to finish writing a book? Because whenever I start, I can't seem to complete my ideas because somewhere in the middle, I start feeling lost because all my ideas are jumbled up and I cannot just complete it that way.
Yeah, I get you, but you have to just make up your mind that and jumbled ideas. For jumbled ideas, that's where the presentation what I gave comes into help. To sort out, the confusion in your mind. That's why it helps you. And most of us have many ideas. Most of us have many ideas and we think we are best, but we need to learn to, reject some of our own ideas as well. Wonderful interacting with you all, and I know many of you have questions, so you can write down my email ID, you can write to me, you can message me on Instagram. Okay, these are my social media handles. You can get in touch with me. In fact, my first mail from a reader came from a girl in Calcutta, from a little girl in Calcutta in when my first book came out. She found me on Instagram and messaged me on Instagram. So I do reply to messages. One more time for the teachers and the Prabhakara Foundation and the volunteers here. Both of you. This is very important. Thank you all. Then you have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We understand from the level ending applause how popular you were. Thank you so much for sharing your writing group. I'm sure our budding writers will have done a lot. I saw a lot of them taking notes. So that was very deep. And giving us a glimpse into your book. I'm sure a lot of copies will be flying off the shelves. And at a personal level, I must say that, of course, I felt inspired and I felt like taking up my pen and writing some of my life stories. I'm sure you didn't know readers for that, but I did. Never. But at a very, what should I say, deep level, I'm filled with admiration for you. What a wonderful journalist you are. Ma'am, may your pride grow. For sharing that story of Lakshmi Panda, I'm sure we don't realize the sacrifices that people made, our freedom fighters made to give us a free country. We forget all that and we take everything for granted. And we need reminders through stories like this of how grateful we should be to them. So thank you so much for taking up a story and writing a book on that. I'm sure, girls, you will be buying those books, right? Thank you so much. I'm so thankful to Mrs. Roy and Muskaan for getting back here and arranging this session. We look forward to hold the sessions, and you can understand. Mansi from Muskaan, thank you so much. I'm coming to everyone. I thank my principal for taking the initiative. I must thank my vice principal and Kolkata ma'am for helping us and guiding us. Shitoma ma'am for acting as a go-between and arranging everything. And my volunteers. We did a lot of running around very cheerfully, so thank you so much. And last but not the least, the students. The event was for you. So had you not been there, the event would not have been here. Thank you so much. Thank you, teachers.